Every tap, every app switch, every login, every payment, every search, they are all tiny cognitive taxes you pay throughout the day. Individually, they are insignificant. Collectively, they exhaust you. The race for the global everything app is no longer a hypothetical software competition. The infrastructure is live, the network is scaling, and the world is about to find out if an alternative digital civilization can truly survive. Every single day, you take part in a highly coordinated illusion. You wake up, unlock your phone, and jump between distinct digital jurisdictions. You check messages on WhatsApp. You look up a business location on Google Maps. You send money through Venmo or Apple Pay. In my part of the world, you would use the Chinese-owned OPay or our homemade money point. You order food through DoorDash in Australia, Uber Eats in the UK, and in Ibadan, Nigeria, you use Hey Food. My people in Lagos, they use Jise. To you, this feels like choice. To the architects of the modern internet, it is a catastrophic operational failure. In the Western world, digital life is deeply fragmented. You live inside isolated silos, separated by high transactional friction, walled gardens, and the silent heavy tax of traditional payment gatekeepers. In Africa, we've been trailing along those tracks ourselves, especially in the sub-Sahara. But outside these places I've mentioned, in the so-called Far East of Asia, an entirely different digital civilization exists. The modern internet is fragmented. One app for messaging, another app for payments, another for work, another for shopping, another for creators, another app for transportation, another app for identity, another app for banking. And we've become so used to this fragmentation that most people assume this is simply how the internet is supposed to function. But in China, something very different happened. In China, a citizen can live their entire life from buying groceries, paying taxes, hailing a car, renting an apartment, to applying for a small business loan without ever leaving one single software interface. It is not outrightly an application, or this must not be reduced to an application. It is a digital ecosystem that has replaced the smartphone's operating system entirely. It is the holy grail of tech economics, the super app. Instead of separate apps competing for individual tasks, this one app slowly absorbed everything. Messaging, payments, business, social media, government services, food delivery, banking, shopping, transportation, and a lot of other things. That app was WeChat. And over time, WeChat stopped behaving like an app. It became infrastructure. For hundreds of millions of people, daily life itself began running through a single digital ecosystem. And ever since, Silicon Valley has been obsessed with one question: can the same thing happen globally? Because if a company successfully creates the world's first global super app, it may become one of the most powerful digital platforms ever created. But here's the strange part. Almost everyone who tried, they failed. For a decade, Silicon Valley's greatest minds have tried to replicate this absolute consolidation of human data and capital. Mark Zuckerberg tried to force it onto Messenger and WhatsApp. Elon Musk bought Twitter with the explicit public ambition of transforming it into X, the everything app. They have all failed. In my honest opinion, they failed because they misunderstood the nature of transactional power. They tried to build a super app from the top down, using the systems of the old world. But while the tech giants were busy lobbying regulators and fighting over traditional bank rails, a quiet, massive transition took place right under their noses. A platform operating out of Dubai, founded by two exiled brothers from Russia, has quietly constructed the literal infrastructure for the next phase of digital civilization. The real race for the global super app isn't won in Silicon Valley. It's not going to be. It's being won elsewhere. Telegram has openly been building something over the years, and now they've been exposed for always still nursing that crypto dream that led to the non-hostile takeover of the Ton blockchain in 2026. But you need to open your eyes. This is not a crypto presentation. Today, nearly 1 billion people use the app, not just to message friends, but to run businesses, to run communities, to run payments, to run media channels, huge media channels, to run scams, mini apps, and even entire digital economies. And that raises a much bigger question. What if Telegram is no longer trying to be just another messaging app? What if it's trying to become something the West has never successfully built before? A true super app. So, why might Telegram succeed where every tech giant failed? And more importantly, what happens to the internet if it does succeed? On paper, Western tech giants looked unstoppable. Meta already owned communication. Google already controls information. Amazon controlled commerce. Uber controlled mobility. Apple controlled devices in the Western world. So logically, one of them should have evolved a project into a super app years ago or even presently. But they didn't. Oh, pardon me. They couldn't. I'm not sure. I shouldn't have said they can't. And the reason is deeper than just technology. But hold on a second. To understand why Telegram is positioned to succeed where Meta and X failed, we have to look at the invisible architecture of the internet. Why doesn't a Western super app exist yet? The standard answer would be what? Cultural. That Western consumers value fragmented privacy over centralized convenience. This is a myth. The real barrier is what? Structural. In the West, the digital stack is aggressively policed by a duopoly, Apple and Google. Every application built in the Western ecosystem must bow to the rules of iOS and Android. If an app tries to process a payment outside of Apple's infrastructure, it faces instant elimination from the App Store. Look no further than Epic Games' multi-year legal battle just to keep Fortnite on mobile devices. Furthermore, traditional financial infrastructure is heavily localized. Moving money from New York to London or to Johannesburg requires routing through a legacy network of correspondent banks, clearing houses, and payment processors. Each entity extracts a fee, and each country enforces distinct compliance frameworks. When Elon Musk states he wants X to handle your entire financial life, he faces an insurmountable wall. He must obtain individual money transmitter licenses for every single jurisdiction, tie X to traditional credit card networks, and operate under the constant threat of deplatforming by the underlying mobile operating systems. Looking further, Wouldn't you say the Western internet evolved differently? In America and Europe, the internet became highly specialized. Every company that really wanted to profit focused on dominating one category. One app for photos, one app for messaging, one app for payments, one app for video, and so on and so forth. And over time, consumers became comfortable living inside multiple disconnected ecosystems. Regulators also became aggressive toward consolidation. Remember what it did to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg when he wanted to launch the Libra crypto token? The larger tech companies became, the more governments feared monopoly power. Meanwhile, in Asia, mobile-first economies evolved under completely different conditions. Many regions skipped older internet infrastructure entirely. The smartphone became the center of digital life almost overnight. That allowed companies like WeChat, Grab, and Gojek to integrate multiple services into one ecosystem far more naturally. But outside China, no company has fully solved that equation. Right now in Nigeria, the Chinese are coming closer to fulfilling this same feat with Opay. They are quite close. But on a global scale, Telegram may be the one that has accidentally discovered something Silicon Valley missed. So logically, why none of the giants hadn't evolved into a super app years ago or even up until the present is because the internet no longer needs another social network. It needs digital infrastructure beyond what you're already accustomed to. Infrastructure that quietly removes friction from everyday life. Think about what happens as people become wealthier. One of the first things they buy isn't luxury, it's leverage. They hire assistants, accountants, drivers, and managers to eliminate the constant mental burden of hundreds of small decisions. A super app promises something similar, except instead of hiring people, you install it. And in Telegram's case, your leverage comes in mini apps. Silicon Valley tried to build a super app by asking permission from the banks, the regulators, and the mobile OS owners. Telegram took a completely different approach. They didn't build a better app, they built an alternative web standard. If you look closely at Telegram today, you realize it stopped being a simple messaging client years ago. It has quietly transformed into a decentralized operating environment. First, they solved the App Store restriction through what are called Telegram Mini Apps. These are full JavaScript applications that run natively inside a chat interface. They bypass the traditional app stores entirely. A developer doesn't need Apple's permission to deploy a service to Telegram's almost 1 billion users. They just deploy code. The app loads instantly within the chart, using the platform's native rendering engine. But a super app cannot exist without frictionless exchange of value, which has succeeded because it tied directly into China's central bank digital infrastructure via WeChat Pay. How does a global app replicate this without a global central bank? You do it by decoupling the payment architecture from traditional banking networks entirely. You use a native high-throughput decentralized ledger. So, by integrating the open network blockchain, originally designed by Telegram's founders, the platform achieved something no Western tech giant can replicate: an embedded, non-custodial global value layer. When a transaction occurs inside a Telegram mini app, It doesn't pass through a Western clearinghouse or an American credit card processor. It executes directly on a global peer-to-peer network. Banks don't like that. But it's a solution, and it's innovative. Suddenly, the 30% digital distribution tax levied by the Silicon Valley duopoly drops to fractions of a cent. High-friction international cross-border payments become as simple and instantaneous as sending a text message. I like it. By merging a high-performance app distribution network with a sovereign financial rail, the platform created a unified ecosystem capable of scaling globally across the United States, Europe, Latin America, the Near East, and Sub-Saharan Africa simultaneously. Essentially, everywhere.
What really helps Ton stand out is the potential for mass adoption, because Ton is the only chain that you can use if you want to build for Telegram users. You can build a Telegram Mini App that would be a part of the interface of the messenger, right? It's just a separate app that you open directly from Telegram. You don't need to leave our favorite messenger anymore. You can do whatever you want inside. And so this concept of a super app, which is super popular in Asia, everyone knows WeChat and their success. So Pavel Durov is trying to do exactly that, but on Web3 rails. And they picked Ton for obvious reasons as an exclusive partner for the Web3 part.
Most people still think of Telegram as a messaging app. That's the mistake. That's why I speak so much about it. Because Telegram today is evolving into something much larger. So if it seems like I'm going about this on and on and on, it's because I see something and I'm hoping the whole world can see that already. Underneath the surface, the platform has slowly been assembling the building blocks of a super app ecosystem. Massive communities, built-in media distribution, creator monetization, mini applications, native payments, digital commerce, bot infrastructure, cloud-based identity that doesn't fall into the wrong hands, and increasingly financial tools. What makes Telegram especially dangerous to competitors is that it already behaves less like a social network or a messaging platform, and more like an operating system that doesn't take more than 150 megabytes to install. Inside Telegram, developers can already build lightweight applications that function almost like standalone platforms. Businesses can operate directly inside chats. Creators can monetize audiences without leaving the ecosystem. Communities can coordinate at massive scale. And in many countries, Telegram is already functioning as an alternative internet layer. Not because governments designed it that way, they would rather not have it so, but because users did. Most tech companies attempt to force ecosystems into existence. Telegram's ecosystem emerged organically. And unlike many Silicon Valley platforms, Telegram has another advantage. It is globally distributed. Its strongest adoption often comes from regions that traditional tech companies struggle to dominate. Eastern Europe, Africa, the Middle East, South America, Southeast Asia. I know people look at Brazil, and so when they hear South America, they think, oh, but tech is doing well in Brazil. Well, I'm talking about a lot of other things going on down there in South America, in the other countries. Places where mobile-first behavior evolves rapidly. Places where fragmented financial systems create demand for integrated digital infrastructure. places where people increasingly live online before institutions fully modernize offline. That changes the equation completely, because the future of the internet may not be decided in Silicon Valley anymore. You've probably been hearing about the success stories coming out of Nigeria. It may be decided in emerging digital economies. Yes, I know that venture capitalists and their liquidity still comes, from the United States, but the conversation is much larger than just where capital comes from. Tell me now, if my friends and I can put our heads together and raise the appropriate type of capital that we need, do you not think that we can go on to launch a successful app or project, a tech project that basically goes on to beat the discouragement that might come out of Silicon Valley? The world has evolved. This is where the story stops being about apps and starts being about civilization, about future infrastructure. For decades, governments built public infrastructure, roads, banks, identity systems, communication networks. But we didn't give them that permission. We didn't ask them to draw the boundary lines across where we live. It was not a unanimous decision. In fact, the masses were not involved. Most of what you have of the world today, known as countries, essentially were the ideas of differing monarchies in some peculiar environments across the world, exerting their influences beyond their immediate environment. If we had our way, we'll probably want the world to be run a different way. But then, we don't have that power, do we? And if we have that power, most likely it came through violence. I'm not preaching violence, but I'm only letting you understand something beyond just what you see on the surface. Now, technology companies are beginning to build digital versions of those same systems that governments used to build for the people. What you might call private infrastructure. And there's a context to this. Increasingly, billions of people rely on this private infrastructure every day. Your communication, your payments, your work, your audience, your business, your identity, all flowing through platforms. These platforms create uncomfortable possibility because you have to manage so many of them at once. What happens when platforms stop competing like apps and start behaving like digital nations? When you build a system that can bypass traditional financial tracking and distribution networks, you are no longer just a software company. You become a geopolitical entity. You are challenging the monopoly of sovereign states over the movement of capital and information. Because this level of architectural independence comes with immense historical friction, governments and manipulative systems frown at them. But this is the true climax of the super app race. The traditional internet is fragmenting. Governments worldwide are realizing that whoever controls the absolute communication and payment layer effectively controls the daily reality of their citizens. The very ethos that allowed Telegram to build this infrastructure, that is, its absolute resistance to centralized intervention, is also its greatest vulnerability. To become a true global super app outside of China, a platform requires more than just code and capital. It requires an extraordinary foundation of institutional trust. Can an ecosystem that operates outside traditional state frameworks convince the average global consumer to deposit their life savings, run their businesses, and anchor their digital identity within its walls? Because super apps are not just software products, they are environments, economic systems, social systems, information systems, and eventually, maybe governance systems. That is why every major technology company wants one. Not just for profit, but for permanence. The company that controls the ecosystem controls the flow of digital life itself. And this is exactly why Telegram's rise matters. Not because Telegram is guaranteed to win, but because the race itself reveals where the internet is heading. Toward consolidation, toward integrated ecosystems, toward AI-powered digital environments, toward platforms that blur the line between communication, commerce, identity, and infrastructure. The internet is slowly transforming from a collection of websites into a collection of digital civilization. And the companies building them may become more influential than many governments ever expected. Super apps face enormous risks: regulation, security, censorship battles, financial scrutiny, platform abuse, government pressure. On Telegram, even I had my account deleted 3 times and had to send a message to communicate how that was a form of injustice. Of course, the account was restored. The same thing happened to my wife. She still has not gotten that account back. But despite that situation, that likelihood, we have to look at the overarching benefit of a super app, or even its possibility at all, should we say there are no benefits to it. And history shows that technology empires rise fast and collapse even faster. But whether Telegram wins or not may ultimately become irrelevant, because the real story is bigger than Telegram. The real story is that the internet is evolving again, and for the first time in decades, the next version of the internet may not look like websites, apps, or social media at all. It may look like interconnected digital ecosystems, competing to become the operating systems of civilization. And the race to build them has already begun. The question of whether Telegram will ultimately win the super app race isn't about an app at all. It is about the future structure of digital civilization. It is about the will of the people and who meets their preferences, in not building what they think the people need, but what the people actually need. Will our future internet look like the legacy Western model? A highly regulated, fragmented landscape controlled by a handful of corporate gatekeepers, working hand in hand with the sovereign states? Or will it look like a highly unified parallel ecosystem that operates entirely on borderless protocols? The tech giants of Silicon Valley built empires based on the roots of the old world. But history shows that true paradigm shifts rarely come from the incumbents. They come from the outliers who change the architecture of the game entirely. The race for the global everything app is no longer a hypothetical software competition. The infrastructure is live. The network is scaling. And the world is about to find out if an alternative digital civilization can truly survive. Here's what most people misunderstand about super apps. They think they are about putting more services into one place. They're not. They're about removing decisions. Have you ever heard about decision fatigue before? Every tap, every app switch, every login, every payment every search, they are all tiny cognitive taxes you pay throughout the day. Individually, they are insignificant. Collectively, they exhaust you. Or at least I speak for myself. The wealthiest people in the world don't eliminate work. They eliminate decisions. They hire assistants, chiefs of staff, accountants, drivers, and managers because every decision delegated is mental energy reclaimed. A super app applies the same principle to software. It becomes your digital assistant, quietly handling the countless micro decisions that normally scatter your attention across your 20 different apps or more. That's why the future may not belong to the app that does the most. It may belong to the one that makes you think the least when you are on a device, so that you can have sufficient brain power to be away from a device and make important decisions. The question is no longer whether the world will eventually adopt super apps. It doesn't seem to me as if people sort of have a choice when it comes to adopting things. It's really that already in some parts of the world, people have already adopted super apps. So the real question then should be, who builds the first truly global app? And what happens when they do? Because the next dominant platform on the internet may not just change technology. It may change how civilization itself operates. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe. Because the future is arriving faster than most people realize. And whichever platform removes the most decisions may quietly become the operating system for billions of lives.